welcome to Nintendo Nostalgia, episode 164. I'm your host, Ryan Black, and I am not joined by a co host this week. That's right, it's just me. So, this week, it's kind of a special episode for me. 164, I used to have an old screen name called Mike 164, and it was just something that kind of fell right in place. The cards just fell in place, and so here I am doing an episode. It's kind of a character spotlight on myself, just giving you guys a bit of my Nintendo nostalgia history, and I hope some of the other co-hosts on the show will be able to do an episode like this as well. But first, before we get into my story, I'm going to talk about what I am radical rexing about. All right, so this week I am radical rexing about more Pokemon, of course, because Pokemon Sword and Shield has kind of been my jam lately. But more so than that, I am really radical rexing about Animal Crossing coming up. I have a little bit of nervousness that I'm not going to like the building crafting mechanic, but I am ready to get into an Animal Crossing. I regularly played the New Leaf until I lost my copy somewhere along the way. Um, and so I stopped playing completely. I didn't want to pick up the game again and play New Leaf all over and start a new game and build from scratch again. I was just going to wait for the next Animal Crossing. So I have been waiting for several years now, and I didn't even do any of the Welcome Amiibo expansion. I haven't touched any of that because I lost my copy long before that time. And I'm really excited. They had an Animal Crossing Direct and showed some more stuff off, and they had amiibo functionality, which was pretty cool. And they're bringing back a lot of the things that I like, some new characters that I'm excited to meet. And just in general, like Animal Crossing has got me really hyped, and I'm excited to go on dates again with my wife, whatever that may be, whatever that may look like, and just to dive into that world and start collecting things again. It's a high reward for a collector, and I'm definitely sure to try to catch all the fish that I can, all the bugs, but even more so collecting all the Metroid memorabilia that I can and decorate my room with Metroid because my town, I always call all of my towns Chozodia, as after the Chozo of Metroid, and I'm gonna be. I created a Dodo Airlines flight boarding pass and passport or what have you on that website. It was kind of cool, and I'm really excited. I found it interesting that they're not going to have special hair colors. You have to use your Nook Miles on that to get special hair colors. So my wife's a little upset over that because pink is like the only color that's ever picked. But that's something that we'll have to come to terms with, and I'm sure Nook Miles will be great to try to grab and pick up. So, and then other than that, I did back the Wonderful 101 on Kickstarter. So I'm excited to jump into that and play the game, give it a proper play. I know before I didn't really give it a chance on the Wii U. I didn't like the controls with the drawing on the screen. Um, and I'm hoping just to play with a traditional controller, I'll actually enjoy it and get it this time. It was kind of like Pikmin meets superheroes meets kind of Beautiful Joe ish. There's like some cool action scenes and stuff. So I'm excited to get in on that Kickstarter. And then there's a couple other Kickstarters circling around out there. I'm like, oh, I want to jump on it, but really, I've got my hands full with Animal Crossing, and they did announce a release date for Wonderful 101, and it's well clear of the release date of Animal Crossing. So I'm going to be just playing a lot of Animal Crossing lately. That's probably what my next few Radical Rex sessions are going to be about is Animal Crossing, either that or Pokemon leading up to the release. But we've got some plans to have some friends over that weekend when Animal Crossing comes out, and just have a blast visiting each other's towns and earning money and building things up and having a good old time. So that's what I'm radical Rexing about. Okay, so let's get into the topic for this week. The topic is me. That sounds weird, but I just wanted to give you guys kind of my history a little bit. Nothing too heavy nostalgia on video games specifically. I'll save those for the episodes that for those games that they air. So, but here we go. This week, I'm going to be getting a little candid with my very own character spotlight. You'll get to hear me recount some of my video game history, my journeys as a gamer, and personal struggles. So I hope you enjoy this journey through my life. Now, this will stop probably at about Wii U era, past my nostalgia. And now, of course, as time goes on, those will become nostalgic too. But this is kind of my journey through early life to the Wii U days. So here we go. I grew up, cut my teeth on ColecoVision, NES, and television, Atari, PC. My parents weren't shy at all about me playing video games, though they tried to limit me as much as I could because I got pretty hyperactive about video games. You show set a Pikachu down in front of me and I'd flip out for hours. But so yeah, I started with the ColecoVision and NES. I had an NES at my grandpa's and an NES at my house, and then the ColecoVision was at my house, and television was at my grandparents, and then Atari was at my grandma's, and then of course we had a PC, and I played a lot of Firehouse Rescue on that. But oh, over that time, I kind of got my building my basics on timing and button pressing and learning how video games worked on these early games. It was a good experience. It helped build me into a better gamer, of course, because those are the building blocks that you always have. Video games weren't prevalent anywhere else in my life, as far as like in school and things like that. Like I know today there's some video game stuff that's been going on, like esports and everything. But back in the day, we didn't really have any support for video games. So what we would just do, um, is like you got special occasions where you played at your home or at your grandparents. They had the cool systems. That's kind of what we had. And sometimes when going over to a friend's house, I know I learned a lot just from playing the Sesame Street games on NES. There was a ABC and a 1 2 3 game, and I also liked Where's Waldo on NES, trying to find Waldo and kind of just being able to look at the hidden things and think through all of that. So I had some learning experiences on the NES with that. And it was such a good time for me. Like I got to share some time playing Ice Climbers with my dad, and I remember playing Carnival a lot. And just there was a game on ColecoVision called Buck Rogers and the Planet of Zoom. It was played off of a cassette tape, believe it or not. The game played both cassettes and cartridges, and I also played the original Star Wars arcade on ColecoVision. That was pretty cool. I was quite obsessed with that. When I found out there was an arcade machine that actually had that play, like that was so cool to experience it recently in my life when I went to a video game arcade that had that. Man, that was special. That really was. From there, my grandpa took me over to our local buy, sell, and trade, and we traded in the NES that my grandpa had, and went with a Super Nintendo. And that was pretty cool. I got Donkey Kong Country with that game. I want to say that the packaging on the box, it may have been like a traded in Super Nintendo, but it still had the Donkey Kong box. They said it didn't come with the game, so I had to pick up that game separately. So I ended up with Donkey Kong Country as my first game, and then I later got Super Mario World on there and enjoyed the heck out of both of those games. Big nostalgia there. But this was also an era of me going and playing a lot of rental games. I remember getting Rise of the Robots, which is considered like one of the worst video games of all time. Definitely the worst fighting game ever created. It was pretty bad, and I thought forever, ever I thought I was bad at fighting games because I was so bad at this Rise of the Robots game, and I just kind of wrote off fighting games as not for me. That's changed over the years, of course, but that kind of ruined me for fighting games growing up. I'd play a little bit on the quarter machines on the arcades, but that's about it. um, some good experiences, bad experiences. I also got to play some Yoshi's Island, and I rented that, and I didn't like it. I couldn't. I get really frustrated when I couldn't get Mario because he was floating off in the distance, and I couldn't reach him, and I didn't understand any of the mechanics at the time. I was too young. I also picked up a Lagoon
I love that game to this day, even though it kind of scared me, like the music and everything. It was kind of a darker toned game, and I never really got anywhere in the game, but I just absolutely loved it for some reason. And then I rented Super Mario RPG, and I would go in and try to fight the sword guy right from the beginning. I didn't understand RPGs at all. Like I tried, but I didn't get it. I played Kirby Superstar, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. But I'm still learning a lot in video games during this time, and I would still go to my grandparents. I think eventually my grandma on my dad's side, she got an NES, and so I continued playing NES games there, and that's where I developed my love for Low G Man and Street Fighter 2010. There were some gems for me, and I played this game. I don't know if it was on her Atari or on her NES. That was like it was. This is a big mystery to me. I never could figure it out. But there was this bonus that popped up. It was the Hudson Bee, but it was a collectible you could grab, and it gave you points. But it only ever showed up in one of my playthroughs, and it never showed up again. And that's not much to go on to trying to identify a game. It was kind of a platformer, a vertical platformer, but as far as that goes, in the family of Hudson Soft, but farther than that, I have no idea what this game was. So if you guys know what it is, that'd be cool. Anyway, I digress. My next jump was on Christmas. I got a Game Boy Pocket. It was a black one, and I also got Donkey Kong Country 2. I was very specific. I wanted Donkey Kong Country 2. Um, or sorry, Donkey Kong Land 2, my bad. And I played the heck out of that. And then I also got Pokemon. And needless to say, that was like my biggest obsession as a kid. It's interesting. Like I get in these Pokemon obsessed moments, but like I don't ever rank it as like my favorite video games. It's interesting to just to have that something like the character IP is such a big thing in my life, but the games themselves never really ranked anywhere on my tops. Um, I kept my Game Boy Color. I never traded that in. Well, at least I didn't until I think maybe the Game Boy Advance. I may have upgraded to Game Boy Color. I'm not 100% sure if I used my trade in for that. But I had my Game Boy Color forever with the fat butt. At least that's what we said it was. I think I had I want to say it was Atomic Purple for my Game Boy Color. That was a pretty cool system. I played Kirby Tilt and Tumble is like my biggest thing on that game. The gyroscope. Playing that in the car was awful. I tried so many times to try to play it in the car. Did not work whatsoever. um, I then took a trip to my local buy sell and trade again with my grandpa, and we traded in the Super Nintendo. And this was kind of a turning point in my life. I had the option of getting an N64 or a PlayStation 1, and I asked them there if the PlayStation 1 played CDs, like audio CDs, and they told me no, which was false. But because they told me no, I ended up going with the Nintendo 64 instead of the PlayStation 1. So that could have been a big turning point in my life where I would have gone like away from Nintendo, but I stuck on the track for Nintendo nostalgia, and keep going. I had a lot of fun on the N64. I didn't have a lot of games for the N64. I had Mario 64. I saved up and I bought my first game I bought. I think was Pokemon Coliseum 2. Um, I'm sorry, Pokemon Stadium 2. Wow. And I had Tonic Trouble. I enjoyed that game. It was what I thought was a Rayman ripoff, but lo and behold, Ubisoft actually made the game, so it was kind of a reskin of Rayman. But I had a lot of fun with that. I got the experience of playing Superman 64. Oh boy, was that awful. Flying through rings and stuff. Um, I didn't keep that game for very long, needless to say. And I also had a Virtual Chess 64. It was a really bad chess game, but I enjoyed it. I was big into chess and like 4-H and stuff at that time, so I had a lot of fun with experimenting with all of that. Um, I got that transfer pack for my Pokemon Stadium 2, and I was able to put my gold and silver. I had gold version in the game, and poured all that stuff and trade back and forth, and that was a really cool experience to have that Pokemon there. And of course, I ever played like N64 games at my friend John Hester's, and he had a Sega Genesis, and that's where I got a lot of Sega Genesis experience. Was John Hester was his mom was my babysitter, through elementary school. So we'd always go over to his house, and we'd play on the Sega Genesis a lot, and then later the 64. That was a lot of nostalgic memories there for Nintendo. And then eventually my grandpa got us Genesis for his house. Grandpa on my mom's side. So we went there, and me and my sister played a lot of Sega Genesis games. Sonic Spinball was like my biggest one. But I also had Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and I remember playing Shaq Fu. I loved that game. Don't judge me. And what was it? It was a Barbie game. I don't know. My sister had a Barbie game, and we'd play it together. And I try to get her hooked on video games through Barbie. It was so fun. Um, and then Pac-Man 2 was another one. The New Adventures. That's a quirky game if there ever was one made. Um, that was a good time. It really, really was. Journeying into my middle school years, there was a worker that worked for my mom who had a couple daughters, and we went over to their house one time, and I get to play Crash Bandicoot on a PlayStation 1 for the first time. That was pretty cool. I had a new enjoyment for a 3D space game. And it was different from N64. Again, I didn't feel a big console rivalry, although I felt a little skeptical at the time about there being something other than Nintendo. So I started to have a bit of that Nintendo loyalty coming through there, but not enough to make me not want to get a PlayStation 1. So shortly thereafter, I don't know what means. I think I might have traded in my N64 towards a PlayStation 1. I know, sacrilege. But I played a lot of Dance Dance Revolution during this time. Picking up like I toned my calf muscles like crazy. I just was obsessed with DDR. I'd go through so much water when I'd play. I'd just play all day, and I'd also play Digimon World. I really enjoyed that game a lot. And Digital Card Battle, and then as I started to get a little older, in eighth grade, I picked up playing Final Fantasy VIII, and just absolutely adored that game. It's one of my favorites to this day. And I definitely picked it up on Switch when it came out. But this was also the era of Midnight Madness at my school. We've probably heard me, Tom, and Jacob all talk about this, but there was a time where, from like I want to say like 7 or 8 in the after or in the evening. Played through straight till midnight. Um, just playing video games. We had a whole bunch of like projector screens and TV set up, and people brought in their systems. We had tournaments. We played all kinds of games. Had crazy junk food, concession stuff like they had at the concession stands in the high school basketball areas and things like that, and just junk food, energy drinks, and playing video games was such a treasured memory for several years in a row. And kind of that's where I got a lot of playtime in. But aside from Midnight Madness, um, I got a chance to show off a lot of my PlayStation 1 stuff. But I kind of had a longing for that Nintendo. I didn't have a Nintendo at the time, other than, of course, my Game Boy. I think I still had my Game Boy Color at the time. So I didn't have a lot of Nintendo to show off, and Jacob still had his 64. Of course, he was playing, and I'd play a youth group and stuff. I'd go and play like GoldenEye and other games like that. I'd go to Zach Kotlowski's house and play Banjo Kazooie and Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. Had a good time with that. I did not like Mario 64 whatsoever. Um, but that was kind of that era. GoldenEye, Mario 64, playing PlayStation 1 games. And then what brought me back to Nintendo, I mean, not to say that I was ever absent from Nintendo, but the console that I really jumped back in was the GameCube when that came out. I believe I got it for Christmas that year, shortly after its release. I didn't have to wait too long for the GameCube. But I really, really loved Luigi's Mansion and showing that off. I remember showing off, I think it was either a New Year's party or a Super Bowl party, and I was playing Luigi's Mansion in front of everybody, and it was so cool. The coolest thing. Um, I have a lot of nostalgic memories from my GameCube. I wish I never would have traded it in, but I did. The reason I did was because I knew that the Wii had GameCube support, so I didn't need my GameCube anymore. So I thought. um, but I did in this time also pick up Game Boy Advance somewhere in there, and because I needed to link my GameCube and my Game Boy Advance, and I ended up playing a lot on my Game Boy Advance, a little more than I did my GameCube. It was kind of a transitioning period where I went from all console and occasionally handheld. Towards the end there, I got playing WarioWare, Mega Micro games, and various other like Game Boy Advance games like Pokemon, Ruby, Sapphire. I had Sapphire. I didn't like Sapphire that much, but I did play it heavily, quite a bit. And just just the Game Boy Advance scene, like Sonic Advance, and just linking that with Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, and playing those types of games. And Crystal Chronicles was a big thing for GameCube, and also the Sonic. I'm sorry, not Sonic. Wow, Legend of Zelda: The Four Swords Adventures. You could play that with your Game Boy. That was pretty cool. But it was time that my Game Boy was going through batteries way too fast, and I needed an upgrade. And they're coming out with this Game Boy Advance SP that had rechargeable battery. And you better believe I was all over that. Backlit, I don't have to worry about the worm light anymore. Like, that was my jam. So I picked up a blue Game Boy Advance SP and played the heck out of that thing. I was a little sad though because at that point, I couldn't play Kirby Tilt and Tumble anymore, which I still had that game. It was a clear, sparkly pink cartridge, and because the cartridge slot was upside down, I couldn't play it. Um, it made me pretty sad. In fact, Kirby Tilt and Tumble was kind of my informant on like whether I would get a Game Boy player or not for the GameCube because I couldn't play Kirby Tilt and Tumble on the GameCube, obviously. So I kind of passed it up. It seems so weird that a Kirby game would dictate whether I'd get some device or something. But I ended up going with the GBA SP, even though I'd be leaving behind my Kirby Tilt and Tumble. At the time, I had on my Game Boy Advance, I had the e-reader, so I took that over to the Game Boy Advance SP, and it still worked just fine, even with the being inserted in the bottom of the system. But Game Boy Advance link cables were all the rage, so I got to play with many a friend, linking up and playing on the GameCube, and such a good time. Right around this time, I got heavily into Yu-Gi-Oh, and these are my game crazy days, where I just got to hang out quite a bit with my now good friend Robbie, and we're gonna be playing Pokemon later today together. And then played lots of tournaments. I won several different tournaments and things. I got the this Nintendo was trying to rebrand for a bit, and Reggie kind of shot them down, but they wanted to go with this like graffiti logo instead of the traditional Nintendo logo. So their advertising during that time was "Who are you?" and it showed like various people with like Mario or something like their heads imposed on their bodies and things. But they had this graffiti like Nintendo logo, and I got these gray hoodies. I won them in the tournaments, and I had three of them that I won, and I'm still actually wearing the one right now. That's one of the originals. It's falling apart and fraying and everything, but I love this hoodie so much. Like I'd never get rid of it. Um, there was a thing where I got rid of two of them. By got rid of, I mean I gave them to old girlfriends and never got them back. So, but I always held on to this one, and it was so awesome to have this piece of nostalgia history. I'm gushing over a silly hoodie. But those are the game crazy days with Nintendo trying to be edgy, and not a lot of people remember this era. There's also kind of springboarding into the DS era. Um, but before we get into the DS, I did want to say in here I got a PlayStation 2. It was my early game crazy days. I had a PlayStation 2 and a GameCube, and I'd pack them all up. I'd take my DDR dance pads and I'd fold them down in the bottom of a big red duffel bag, and I'd put my PlayStation 2 beside it and my GameCube on top of the DDR mats. And I had all the cords in there. My GameCube had a screen on top of it, and I got the cords necessary to hook a AV cable into the side of the screen so I could play my PlayStation 2 on the little screen too. And we just any place we had a plug, I'd plug in and we'd break out the dance mats and we just play DDR right there on the spot. Um, we would play it outside Game Crazy, inside Game Crazy, at the movie theater. Um, we would just play video games anywhere on the go, and that was kind of my first like Nintendo Switch, if you will. It was a good time, and I'd carry this huge red bag that was super heavy. It had a whole bunch of games in it, of course. I had these little like GameCube sized disc cases that I kept in like a little round zipper pouch, and I'd carry those around, and I'd also keep like the PlayStation 2 games as well. I had Tekken Tag Tournament and the DDR games, and I would carry this bag around everywhere. I would walk miles with this bag on my shoulder. Probably not good for my shoulder or my back, but I just go everywhere with this thing, and that was what I was known for is my big red bag full of video games that I could play anywhere, anytime. I was the cool kid. So after that era, I did pick up a Virtual Boy. My dad brought one home one day randomly. He found it at a garage sale, and I got to experience that for the first time. Man, my nostalgia was great for that. You couldn't find the games or the system anywhere, but I had one, and I played Wario and Tolero Boxer all the time. I also had Mario Tennis, which I didn't play very much of, and I didn't appreciate much. But needless to say, I ultimately got a battery pack or a wall charger for the Virtual Boy because that thing ate through batteries like mad. Um, I kind of graduated from there. I got the DS when it came out. Metroid Prime First Hunt in 2004. That's the demo that came with it, and that's all I had for a while. And I had Game Boy Advance games, and then I had this Metroid Prime First Hunt, which I played obsessively. I wanted everything Metroid about it. I love Metroid Prime and the idea of Metroid coming to a handheld system on DS. The fact that the DS could even handle this was just mind blowing. Like I absolutely love this little demo game. There's nothing to it. Absolutely nothing. There weren't even Metroids in it. They had mock droids, but I just adored it so much. And the touching is good. Branding that went along with that, and all the games that I eventually got more DS games. I got completely obsessed with this game. It was called Ping Pals. Yes, you can judge me for that one. It was a game where you kind of just dressed up your avatar. It was kind of before I got into Animal Crossing. Like that was my avatar like dressing game, and you chat with friends or you could chat with the computer, and you put in certain keywords and you get money for those keywords. And I'd use that money. I just stay up late at night just typing in all the words that I could think of and looking at dictionaries. And I'd put more words in and try to get these money words and use the money to spend for new costumes for my Ping Pal character. So silly of me, I know. But I got a lot of experience with that. I kind of improved my vocabulary and kind of grew there. Like DDR built up my physical strength and endurance, and then my mental strength and endurance, or my at least with words, was this Ping Pals game. It's so weird how like the education behind video games kind of played into my life in some ways too. Um, I as far as education goes, during these days, I was always going to a Christian school. I went to Baptist Temple up through sixth grade, first or yeah, first grade through sixth grade, and then I switched over to Baptist Academy. My Baptist Temple was closing down, so I jumped over seventh grade to Baptist Academy, where we had Game Crazy, and finished out. Graduated from there. Um, so I had a lot of like religious background, and I love God, and I'm a believer in Jesus Christ that He saved me, and I feel like it's kind of taken for granted for me, honestly, because I've had it my whole life. But I was not always strong in my faith, and there was a time where I had a dark spot, but that was in my college years. So we'll cover that a little bit when we get closer. Back to the video games. During this time, I did pick up a PlayStation Portable. I was convinced that if I got a PlayStation Portable, down the line, I'd eventually be able to play Final Fantasy VIII on the go, and that was my big dream. Like I wasn't gonna hack my system, but I wanted to play Final Fantasy VIII on the go. I was determined to do it. I bought a lot of UMD videos. I had Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I played that a little too much. Um, also, I enjoyed some of like the scarier stuff, like Dark Water. I know it's not super scary, but it's like psychological horror stuff. But I had these little UMD movies that I'd watch all the time. I had Sky High on there, and I'd have my music loaded on there, MP3s loaded on there. I had some silly like tracks, just like almost like middle school, high school stuff. I was such a kid, but I enjoyed all of that media machine that PSP was. I moved further from the PSP though. DS Lite came out. I played a lot more DS at that point, and got really into Nintendo. And PSP was just kind of a hold me over, cool device that I could own. But then after the DS Lite in 2007, I picked up the Wii at midnight launch. I got that one from uh, GameStop. I think Game Crazy had closed shortly before this, or it was getting ready to. And I had my pre-order set for the Wii over there at that GameStop, and that's when I started making that GameStop my home. It was fairly close um, to that Game Crazy, but that's kind of what I had to settle with. And I got the Wii countdown clock. That's something I put my name on before the Wii was even launched. And that night, I got to take home a brand new Wii and the countdown clock as well. I think I still have that sitting around here somewhere in my house, but good memories. Then I got in 2008. I picked up the DSi and got to experience Nintendo's first online experience. That was pretty cool. I played a few indie developed games that were on their quote unquote eShop. Their first attempt at that, and it was a media machine, so you could like take pictures and edit them and put like through different filters, and you could also put audio through different filters, speed up, slow down, and kind of mess with the audio for music tracks that you put in. It was kind of like the PSP, but a little bit more versatile in how you could edit music and mess with things. And that kind of was what kind of influenced me to want to go to a music school. Oddly enough, found out that I liked editing the audio and messing with it, making it sound different. And I was like, I bet you I can do that. You know, I was heavy into singing. I bet you I can do that. Um, I can go to school for this. And so I went off to college. 2009, I took a journey to Memphis, Tennessee. I went to Visible Music College there. At the time, it was just called Visible Music School. Um, and there was a week program right before that was called, or right before I went to this college that had kind of intensive training called VMI, and that's where I met my wife and Nisa at the time, and it was a lot of fun. Just getting to know my wife, and then also uh, getting to learn music and just be into that environment, being around people that loved singing, playing instruments. I felt at home here, and I went for a year um, at Visible Music College, and I also during this time I got my then girlfriend Animal Crossing Wild World and a DSi, and sent that as I think it was a birthday present, I want to say, and sent that, and it was really cool to have us be able to play Animal Crossing Wild World together. They had the online feature available during that time for the DSi. Um, they were really kind of a big a big time in our lives of dating, kind of visiting each other's towns when we met up, and we connected a lot over Animal Crossing. It definitely brought us closer together. During this college time, I also picked up an Xbox 360 with my tax check in 2010 and played a lot of Castle Crashers and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I got the system for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I wanted to try it. It looked really cool. I've always wanted to see what modern combat was like with new guns and futuristic tech, and that was really cool. I like that idea. So I was kind of a 360 person for a little bit, but I still stuck with my Nintendo quite a bit. We played our share of Wii Sports, let me tell you. Late 2010, after I had left college, I got an Xbox Connect and played that on my 360. Played that with friends. I had a return to the college house that I was living in before I left for Memphis. I went back to that place, and I got to play a lot of just Xbox games. It was fun playing with going hanging out with friends and playing GameCube, but I was ready for something new for Nintendo. And so Nintendo came along with the 3DS, and I was all over that. I bought two of them in 2011 on launch day, one for me and one for my fiance, I believe at the time. Yeah, fiance, not wife yet. And that was really cool to have that simultaneously. We both had the early adopter ambassador program for those people who jumped on it at launch, and they didn't have a lot to offer at first on the 3DS, but they rewarded us with Game Boy Advance games, and About this time, Animal Crossing had come out for the 3DS, and so me and my wife played a lot together. We would go on dates on the island and share each other's towns, and just we got heavily into this game. And it was kind of an intimate time for us through a video game, no less. It was very very rewarding, and like Nintendo throughout the years has never ceased to keep like pushing me to learn, to grow, to experience new things in video game settings, and I'm really, really happy with how all of that turned out. As far as Animal Crossing and everything, I do need to take a moment and clear up some confusion about me referencing my wife and an apparent name change midway through the show history. Um, my wife came out as trans a couple years back and identifies as male and goes by Draco. So if you were kind of confused by the name change, that's kind of what that was. Why I'd been a little weird about pronouns, saying they and them instead of like he, him, just because I hadn't been open about it with people. So I just wanted to go forward to just let you guys know that. Didn't exactly come as a shock for me. My wife has always been presenting masculine punk when I met him, and even in video games like Animal Crossing, he'd always pick the boy model. He, for the longest time, identified as gender fluid anyway. It was, however, an unexpected journey for myself when I started self-examining my own sexuality, my faith, and what the transition meant to me. It was kind of a shock to know that I'd struggle with this. It's kind of obvious now looking back, but I kind of examined this and went through this and decided, I really, really love my spouse, and that doesn't change anything. We still love each other, and I'm still like good with God and close with Him, and keeping on my journey there. So like nothing's really changed, other than just identifying and gender and things like that, and that's cool. I'm completely supportive, and I'm really happy to go forward here. Kind of be kind of out in the open for everybody on my show. So you're not confused by when I say Draco instead of Nisa or anything like that. Like it's all it's all been said now, so it's out in the open. I do still refer to Draco as my wife for religious reasons, but husband is also accurate if you wanted to refer to him as that. Before I close out the show, I just wanted to talk about the future of my nostalgia. Of course, the Wii U came out, and it's still too fresh to be really a nostalgic system for me, though there are some notes of it. And of course, the going on into the Switch and becoming the merging of the hybrid, portable consoles and home consoles, and I've had peppered throughout my life. It's awesome to have a system that has everything together with the Switch. But who knows what Nintendo has coming to the future? But I'm glad I could spend this time and give you guys a spotlight on me. It's kind of a shorter episode, and I didn't have a whole lot to share with you. A lot of this stuff has come out in the episodes on the different episodes that we did for different video games and such. But I wanted to give you kind of an overarching view, and then of course you'll hear a lot more nostalgia from me in the future. All right, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening. You can find the show at thenintendovillage.com/Nintendo Nostalgia on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and YouTube. You can find us on Facebook at Nintendo NOS, on our Twitter at Nintendo_NOS, and you can find us on our Instagram at Nintendo NOSIN. Shoot us an email at nintendonostalgiain@gmail.com. Guys, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next week. Later, Preston.